What sustains you? What stills your mind when fear floods your thinking and anxiety interrupts your sleep? What lifts your spirit when the weight of illness or loneliness descend? What brings calm when a deep awareness of your mortality is made even more real? Or when the loss of a loved one looms right there? What does it take for you, as May Sarton puts it, to be dissolved and shaken, and yet even then to feel your own weight and density and to live fully all yourself? All my life, I've thought of myself as a person of faith, yet I have descended to dark places. My father's alcoholism, physical abuse at the hand of my ex-husband, my mother's brain aneurysm and her death at 56 years old. The anxiety that I have not been enough or done enough to survive and heal. I had to learn how to listen for my rising, defiant spark. And so, as a person of faith, faith changed its meaning and definitions across the course of my life. Today, we struggle in response to the tearing apart of the fabric of our national consciousness by ideologies, by guns, by hate. You can find statements like the ones I'm about to share in article after article or news post after news post. Here's one statement. Over the past decade, the number of American children and teens admitted to children's hospitals for reporting suicidal thoughts has doubled. Or, here's another statement. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 24 years old. Or here's my third statement. Most experts agree that there is more stress today than in previous generations, and parents have not taught their children the coping skills they need to survive. Wow. It's overwhelming. And it seems vital that each one of us explore and learn how to call upon and talk about our own rising, defiant spark and find the balance that we need to survive. I have come to believe that balance is not a matter of teetering between two values, like freedom on the one hand and responsibility on the other. Rather, balance means that I find a way to breathe in freedom even as I struggle with the mountain of responsibilities that I may be holding. Balance means that we learn that love holds within it the promise of sorrow. And that even in the depths of sorrow, each of us can touch a small spark of joy. I believe that if we hold on to the misconception that living in some kind of perfect balance will protect us from pain, we will then block off our mind and body from the emotions that we must feel and the journeys we must make into vulnerability. For these guide our growing. In the story of all ages, or for all ages, we heard how Sofia's heart was broken. Like most of us, Sofia was taught misconceptions, sometimes overtly, sometimes subtly, about how to be good and appropriate. She listened, for example, to the voices of her parents that told her she was a stubborn and silly girl whose fears and perceptions, those shadow monsters, were inconsequential and not real. But they were real to her. She was scolded by her teacher for not following the class assignment, and her drawings were a waste of paper. But Sofia found her voice through wise dog. This is one of my favorite parts where, if you invert the letters for dog. Just saying. Dog taught her a different way to see the shadow monsters. And those shadow monsters were her fear and her shame at not being who she was supposed to be. Dog taught her to attend to the shadow monsters, to listen inside, to listen to what was needed. What did they need? And then do it, feed them, and then move on. Dog taught her that darkness is much more than a place of fear. It's also a place of growth and dreams. Perhaps Dog was a friend. Perhaps Dog was her therapist. I like therapists. I'm a clinical social worker too. I think that's important. Perhaps Dog was a family member. Perhaps Dog simply was the rising of her own defiant spark within her. But the story is not over once Sofia acquires new knowledge. To grow and heal, Sofia must act on what she has learned and face those shadow monsters. She's still afraid, she still fails, and here's an interesting element. When she falls, she becomes furious. Her sadness, her fear, her pain are transmuted into anger. Has anyone experienced that? I have. To find her way to healing with the Heartmender, Sofia delves deeply into her emotions and recalls what Dog taught her to do. Attend to the darkness. Listen for what is needed. Do it, and then move on. Now, who is Sofia's Heartmender? Terra. I love the play on words. And what is one of the concepts of Terra? The earth. Terra, the earth. Sofia's heart is mended by time spent and connection with the earth. Her healing, the balance of rage with compassion, fear with courage, provides the strength needed to speak with her teacher and her parents. She learned to value the dark and the moonlight within it. In this story, Sofia experiences her descent into dark places and the growth of her defiant spark, her spiritual energy, by claiming her rage, her fear, and her art. And it happens all within one day. Like a sitcom, 30 minutes, and it's all solved. That doesn't happen in my life. So May Sarton illuminates us even more by saying, it takes many years and places. We are dissolved and shaken, hiding away our own perceptions and at times wearing other people's faces. Oh my, how we hide. Seth Godwin, an author and blogger, wrote, "You hide, all of us do. We hide from change, we hide from responsibility, we hide from the prospect of feeling foolish. We hide by avoiding the things that change. We hide by asking for reassurance, we hide by letting someone else speak and we simply lead. We hide by letting someone else speak up and letting them lead. We live in fear of our feelings. We rationalize in extraordinary ways to avoid coming out of hiding." One thing I've learned about the white supremacist Midwestern culture that I was reared in is that maintaining control, being modest, not being too exuberant or emotional, making measured decisions and actions were regarded as most admirable. And sometimes I was just too much. Actions or emotions that were too showy, too effusive, or too demonstrative did not demonstrate a proper restraint and a proper balance between thinking and feeling. And what did I say about balance? They're not opposite ends of the spectrum. It's finding the true connection. Have you ever considered that actions derided as too brash or too loud or too extreme might be necessary to face the imaginary and real monsters that appear in our lives? Monsters like racism or ravaging illness, war, prison, sex abuse, economic injustice, family violence, debilitating depression, anxiety, and loss. When we face the monsters, when we talk about our emotions and our vulnerability, we teach each other how to survive. Balance, as May Sarton observes, is the act to stand and truly feel our own weight, our own density, our own shadows and silence, and the fruit that we are and produce. To acknowledge all of myself, to accept that my shame is also the source of my grace. That action I have taken in rage or fear and wished I hadn't taken may become part of forgiveness and courage. To stand still in that place of balance is truly to stop the sun. We can experience these moments even within our own lifetime. There are times when vulnerability, anger, sorrow, or pain well up within us. And may I suggest that these can be a blessing, because a truer sense of our personhood may be found. Sofia's story is a good one, but I want to share a real life example or examples, because descending into the dark is something we do in many ways. Since retirement, Tony and I have become big movie fans. We watch films on Netflix, Apple, Peacock, Disney, and Xfinity. I suppose we could get HBO and Hulu, but who has time? In 2022, Steven Spielberg's reinterpretation of West Side Story was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. After watching both movies, Spielberg's 2021 version and the 1961 version, directed by Robert Wise and Jerome Robbins, I wanted to learn more about those films because they dealt with race and violence and hate and love and sexism and courage in profound ways. How many of you have seen either one or both of West Side Story? A good portion of you, and I would urge you, if you haven't, to see one or both. I read and listened following watching the movies to some interviews. One was with Ariana DeBose, the Afro-Latinx lesbian who plays Anita, and one was with Rita Morano, who plays the part of Anita in the original 1961 version. So both characters, both of those women played Anita. Ariana DeBose discussed the psychological wounds she experienced caused by making herself palatable to white culture, Black culture, gay culture, mainstream culture, and media culture that, through its messaging, belittled and shamed her for being too much or not enough. She hopes that as an actress and with her public presence, her embodiment in being multiracial, multi-ethnic, and queer, and her multicultural voice will give hope to the young and those struggling today with their own shame. As for Rita Morano, although she was the first Latina to win an Oscar in 1962 for her role in West Side Story, she quit making movies for 7 years after receiving that award because she refused to continue to play parts as a resident utility ethnic. She was sick of roles that stereotyped and demeaned her as a Latina and roles that forced her to play anything not American. Moreno states, "I became the gypsy girl, or I was the Polynesian girl, or I was the Egyptian girl." Some of you may remember her in the role of Tupton in the 1956 film version of The King and I. Moreno knew she was not the best choice to play a Burmese character, and she was sick of being cast as the Hispanic Spitfire, a word she came to despise. She explained, "There is a way of being racially insulting to someone without ever using bad words. You get bypassed. It's assumed that you can only speak with an accent." It would have been safer for Rita Moreno and Ariana DeBose to hide and shut up. But culture will not be healed or strengthened by comfort and safety of only some of us. We manage our daily lives bruised by grief and battered by a multiplicity of frustrations, misconceptions, and injustices. We may get angry and blow our cool. We may make lousy choices. We may snap at a loved one with withering words, or we may recall a host of other experiences for which we are ashamed. But we become more truly ourselves when we take risks for love and justice. Once upon a time, I believed that as a good girl, an educated white female, Made in the image of the divine, I should maintain order, seek control over my emotions, and never show vulnerability or rage. That was considered living a healthy and balanced life. But life dissolved my misconceptions, my understanding of balance as this and this. And I did descend into dark places. Whatever you name the mystery that breaks into your soul or your consciousness, be it fierce unrest, or the defiant spark, or Channing's unbounded spiritual energy, or dog, or God, or our shared kindred mind, or the hope of 7 generations. May I suggest that you attend to your monsters, listen to what is needed, do it. Summon the courage, share how you've done it, and move on. May I suggest that you teach your young ones that darkness is much more than a place of fear. It's a place of growth and dreams. May I suggest that the defiant spark may bring us a respect for the profound balance that we strive for. And that when the dark descends, we learn that yes, even those were a best part of our lives. Amen.
Visit us at uusg.org.